Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching Kalani and Asuelu on 90 Day Fiancé. Let's get to it and see if anything of interest comes out of my face.
I just feel like it's good for us to buy actual presents and not just give money.
But we can take gift and take money too.
Why would we take money if we're taking gifts?
I really want to contribute this money to make my relationship with my family tight like yours.
But money does.
Okay, so as I talked about last time, there is a cultural tradition, I believe, in Samoa where when you make money, if a family member makes money, particularly if it's a child of parents that need money, the expectation is that you will send money back. And if you don't send money back, then you are a bad child. And there's nothing wrong as a parent or a family member to ask or even demand money from someone who has money to offer you. And I think it's even a common thing where if someone comes to the United States or another country where the standard of living is higher and the jobs pay more per hour, that it's absolutely a big part of that life where, okay, you're going to the States. At some point, the money is going to start coming in because I'm old now and I can't work anymore, or in my part of the world, we don't have jobs that pay that much. And so we are a family that shares with each other because that is the moral way to go through life. We're not individuals. We are a group. And when someone is suffering, then we all chip in to help them. And that includes if you're earning a lot of money, then you're going to send money back. So I think that is the culture that Asuelu's family adheres to. And so he wants that. Now, in my culture in the United States, we don't do that sort of thing, or at least my cultural pocket in the United States. We are individuals. We do things alone, and we would never ask for money. It's extremely impolite to ask for money. Even if you are completely desperate for money, you never ask for money. Or if you do, it's got to be like, I'm so sorry, I'm asking for this money. There's a lot of weirdness that we have in our culture regarding money. So when and I'm guessing a lot of people from my cultural pocket, watch Asuelu and his family, it looks strange. Now, as I said in a previous episode, just because they're operating from a cultural mainstream place doesn't mean that they're operating in a nice way about it. For example, you could have two Samoan families, both adhere to this cultural value. One does it in a polite way and the other family does it in an impolite way. And we'll just see how that plays out. Because I'm guessing even within that culture of giving back to your family, there's certain rules about how much you push a family member or how much you demand or that kind of thing. So we'll see how that plays out. But Asuelu wants to give back to his family, and that's okay. Now, he is working at this point. I don't think he's earning that much money. And Kalani doesn't want to give money to his family. Okay. Kalani is making this compromise of well, why don't we just send them some gifts? Maybe that will placate them a little bit. I actually don't think it's going to placate them. I almost think they should just send the money instead of sending the gifts, because the gifts, they're going to be like, thanks for this shirt, but I need money to pay my bills. So I don't know how that's going to go. But as usual on the show, when there is a conflict around money, the couples don't tend to speak in a differentiated manner. So what would that look like? What that would look like is the two of them sitting down and saying, okay, we have a incident right now that we have to deal with. We're at the shopping place, shopping to send gifts and send money. But really, this is a lifetime of an issue here, or at least as long as his parents are alive or whatever. And so let's sit down and figure out, okay, what's the budget? This is something that I'm often yelling about on this show. It's like, sit down, talk about the budget. Here's how much we earn. And actually, it wasn't just this show. It was Married at First Sight. There's another couple, Michael and I can't remember her name. But there's frequently this kind of thing where people, I'm guessing, are so afraid to get into a conflict, or they want to keep the power of the money, so they don't want to talk about the nuts and bolts of the finances with the other person. It would be so much more functional if the two, Kalani and Asuelu, sat down and said, here's how much I'm earning, here's how much you're earning, here's how much our fixed costs, here's how much we need to save for the children, here's how much we have for healthcare. Here's how much we have for the savings that we're going to do, because they don't live on their own, I don't think, right? They live with their parents. And here's the extra money we have. What do we want to do with that extra money? And even if they have extra money, but let's say they have a little bit extra money, what do we want to do with that? Well, do we want to save up for the kids next year for their clothes, or do we want to give money to your family? Do we want to have an extravagant party, or for holiday time? Whatever it is, but the two of them decide. Now, they might disagree. Asuelu would probably say, any extra money, let's send back to my parents, my mom, because that's a big deal to me. Kalani would say, I feel like that's pretty negative for me, because we both worked hard for that money, and I would like to do this other thing. Like, I would like to go on a road trip and have some fun, have a honeymoon that we never had or something. And maybe they're like, okay, well, let's do half to my family and half to the honeymoon, or something like that. Some kind of negotiation, a discussion. How much do you want this? What is this going to look like long term? And maybe even having a conversation, the two of them with the mom. Here is the budget we have decided on. And mom, Asuelu's mom, here is the situation as a united front. What I'm guessing is going to happen, which is frequent, is that they have very undifferentiated, quick conversations where they're not really listening to each other, and they're trying to persuade the other very quickly, and they're judging the other in a quick manner as well. And then the mom or the Asuelu's family is going to get involved, Kalani's family is going to get involved, and everyone's going to be upset because Kalani and Asuelu never sat down and decided as a couple. Because if they don't agree, then Kalani's family is going to agree with Kalani, and Asuelu's family is going to agree with Asuelu, and the two families will be head to head. The two of them have to come together and face both families and say, this is what the two of us are doing. This applies to money, it applies to parenting, it applies to a lot of things. It doesn't mean we, cut off from the in-laws and from our family of origin, but it does mean that when there's tension and there's opportunity for triangulation, then it will happen. Meaning that if there is an unresolved conflict between Kalani and Asuelu on this issue, then the natural consequence is that Kalani's family will be triangulated in as the third member to get sucked into that conflict between Asuelu and Kalani. And Asuelu's family will be triangulated in, and then the anxiety will just move through the triangles and it won't get resolved.
Doesn't make family close, like relationships make family close.
But that's your family. My family, it's really close if we give money.
I don't think you need to be buying your family's closeness.
So this is upsetting to see. Now, I hope they have more conversations, but Asuelu and Kalani are trying to understand each other's culture. They come from different cultures, even though they come from similar cultures, because Kalani's dad comes from, I believe, the same region as Asuelu. But Kalani seems to be more Americanized. I don't want to, impose that on her, but she seems to have, at least in this arena, the cultural value of people don't send money home necessarily, or that not that much, or you can't demand that your son send you money. And Asuelu comes from the culture where that is not only okay, but it's totally expected. I believe. I'm not quite sure about that, but it seems that way. At least that's the way they're talking. So Asuelu is saying and it was interesting. I'm going to rewind it because he actually stated it pretty well, and I hope he really tries to explain it to her. It doesn't mean that we have to go with his option. It doesn't mean we have to send all the money, but at the very least, they should understand each other. We would want Asuelu to say, look, I understand that our cultures are different, but in my culture, it's extremely important that I send money back. It defines who I am as a son. And since I have money, we have money to spare. We don't have a lot, but since we have a little bit to spare, it's incredibly disgraceful that I don't help out my mother, who really needs the money. I mean, $100 would go a long way for her, and I need to do this, or I need you to understand how important this is to me. Kalani could say, I get it, I understand you, I still don't want to do it, but I understand why you want to do it, and I understand that I'm asking a lot of you to deny that. Instead, they're just arguing as if their culture is the culture. I'm going to rewind it. Let's watch.
Family tight like yours.
But money doesn't make family close, like relationships make family close.
But that's your family. My family, it's really close if we give money.
I don't think you need to be buying your family's closeness.
I think that's the only idea for me to make my family close to me.
So that statement's a little odd. I'm guessing a lot of Samoans would say that statement is weird. The only way I can get my mother to love me, essentially is what he's saying, is if I send money. So I'm thinking that Asuelu is trying to convince through a very ham-fisted manner, trying to say, look, this is the only way that I can get love from my mom, instead of being a little bit more flexible. I think he's really trying to persuade her in a, like I said, ham-fisted way that I don't think is going over very well with Kalani. As she stated, if the only way you can get love from your mom is to send money, something's wrong there, right? Now, what Asuelu could say is, Kalani, I get it. I get that you don't want to send money to my parents. You don't even really know my parents, and I respect that. You know, they should be able to respect each other. The other thing here I think is a part of this is that for Asuelu, he has been separated from his family. He is in a foreign country where he is cut off from all of his support system. And in his conflicts with Kalani, Kalani always has his family, her family, living in the house to support her, and he doesn't have anybody. And so I think he feels very cut off. He feels a lot of grief and loss about not having access to them. And he, on a daily basis, feels that disconnection and that resentment that his wife, the person he conflicts with a lot, that she always has people in her corner. I have no one in my corner, and this is my one way of getting people in my corner is to give them money, and then maybe they'll be in my corner a little bit more. I think this is on his mind a lot. And I would, again, wish that they could have a conversation about that, because they both should have people in their corner, and they should also not be conflicting this as much, to need people in their corner. To imply that they have a corner, meaning, you know, they're in the boxing ring, that implies that they're, you know, they're adversaries, but they don't need to be.
Well, how much do you think will buy the affection of your family?
I think I should give my mom 1,000.
That's not going to work. You're
Why?
not giving $1,000 because $1,000 is an unrealistic amount of money to give people, especially when you work part-time. Where is that going to come from, and how are you going to pay bills for the month?
Okay, good. So I wish it was a different tone. Kalani is talking down to him. Asuelu is being unreasonable, seemingly. So they're both playing their role. She's playing the mom, and he's playing the child. Children don't know budgets, and children are saying, Mommy, give me money. And moms go, no, that's unreasonable, that's too much. And there's this negotiation you do with your kids of like, I know you want to buy the most awesome computer, but we can't afford it, even though you could afford it, but it would mean you couldn't buy anything else that month. And so you negotiate with your kid. You're like, well, no, that one's too much. You can make do with the Chromebook. And the kid's like, but I don't want the Chromebook. That's with mom and child. That's not with husband and wife. So they're both playing their role. He is being unreasonable and silly, you could say, and not being responsible, not thinking about the bigger picture, as children do, not as adults are supposed to do. And Kalani is talking down to him, and so they're both polarizing in this way. She's saying, okay, fine. How much money will it take for you to get your love from your family? You heard that sarcastic. It's never a good idea to be sarcastic. If you're resorting to sarcasm in your discourse with your loved ones, something is going wrong. So she's being sarcastic, and then he says $1,000, and she says, that's not going to work, because you work part-time and we have other things to pay for. So this is good. Her tone is of a mother. Like, let's imagine another tone. Let me role play another tone. Okay, Asuelu, I hear that you want to give your parents $1,000. When I hear $1,000, that is too much money. And let me explain. I get that you want to spend $1,000, and I know this means a lot to you. But when I think about the budget, I think about this, I think about that. So maybe we should sit down and graph it all out and write out all of our budget, and maybe $1,000 will work, but I don't think it's really going to work. So maybe we should talk about it. Okay. So you see my tone there was a little bit like a parent, a little bit parental, but not condescending parental the way that Kalani does. Now, again, it's when someone acts like a child, it's hard not to talk to them like a child. It's hard not to be condescending to them. So they're both pushing each other into that position. They're both causing it. They're both settling into that role. But she just started to talk about a budget, so maybe they'll actually sit down and map it all out. I doubt that they will, though.
I think it's come from my pocket.
Okay. And
I always like it when I make the same face as the people in the show. I made the same face that Kalani was like, huh? So, yeah. Now, we have to wonder if she weren't so condescending and if he had more support, would he act so much like a child? That is a childish thing to say. We have to pay bills. Where's the $1,000 going to come from? From my pocket? End of story. Like how, what? How does that make any sense? You have 2 children from your pocket. You live with her parents from your pocket. Okay. So it makes sense that Kalani would go, huh? But I wonder if let's just say Kalani came into individual therapy and I helped her to not be condescending and still assert herself, but to not play into the role, not be sucked into the role of overfunctioner. I wonder if he would rise to the occasion and act more responsibly and speak from a more responsible adult-like place, because I've seen that before. There's also a chance that he's so entrenched in that mindset because of his traumas growing up that he actually can't get out of that. And regardless of what Kalani does, his role seems a little bit more rigid than hers. I'm just going to say that. I don't know. I'd have to assess them in person. But from what we've seen on the show, his role seems less affected by what she does than what hers is. I think she can vacillate between being a peer, meaning being on the same level power-wise with him, and being, parental to him. He seems to almost always be coming from a childish role towards her. But I don't know. Maybe that's just what we're seeing on the camera.
then whose pocket is going to pay for all of our bills for the month?
Baby, don't you worry. We give money and God will make a way. We can don't.
Yeah, don't scroll your eyes. That's a great saying. Don't scroll your eyes. Yeah, and I shouldn't do it either. I should be more respectful. I just rolled my eyes again at the same time that Kalani did. And that's disrespectful. You shouldn't scroll your eyes. What you should do is say, okay, honey, when I hear that, this is what I feel about it. I feel like that doesn't make any rational sense. To say that God will provide, that doesn't make any sense. It's not practical. I don't think God wants us to just throw money away and expect him to make up for it. I don't think that's how God works. It's like jumping out of an airplane without a parachute and saying, well, God will catch me. Like that's not how God made the world. He made the world, he or she made the world with the idea that we should think about consequences. We should think about our own lives and not just depend on him for everything. Anyway, but at the same time, maybe Asuelu, that's where he comes from. This is his idea that the God will provide. But we could also see that he is just trying to pull out any arrow in the quiver as ammunition to get his point across. He's just like, from my pocket, God will provide. Everything will be fine. Instead of saying, you're right. Let's sit down. Let's budget it out. And let's figure out, maybe I could save money here by not doing this sort of stuff. And then I could send money back because it's my family and I should make the sacrifice. Something like that, instead of just God will provide and it's from my pocket.
Scroll your eyes.
$1,000 is like a month of Asuelu's work, so I don't know on what planet we would have that much money to just give out randomly, but
okay, I did not think they were going to do that. I always love it when they contextualize the budget. So she just said that Asuelu makes $1,000 a month. So that definitely puts things into perspective, right? I'm quite positive that the family needs that money to pay bills, to help, feed the children, feed themselves, plan for moving out, this sort of thing. So, that tells you a lot that it's a 1/12 of his yearly income. That's a lot of money, yeah.
but we certainly don't have it right now. Okay, how about this? How about if you give your mom 1,000, then we'll give my dad 1,000, and then we'll just believe that it'll just appear in our bank account.
Okay, so what amount do you think we're gonna give my family?
Okay, so I did not think that was going to work, but it did, and whatever works, works. So Kalani says, okay, fine. How about you give your mom $1,000, and I'll give my mom $1,000, and we'll just hope God fills our bank account. And then he says, okay. Then he relents. He says, okay, well, what do you think? Now, this is not the result that I'm hoping for ultimately. Well, they're not. He's starting to loosen up, which is good, but. Again, what they need is the two of them to sit down, two adults, work it out, negotiate, plan for the future, plan for budgeting, not this tone, not the way that they're talking about it right now. It completely plays into their over-functioning, under-functioning dynamic.
I think like 50 would be fine to give to your mom.
$50?
Yeah.
Baby, that's not the law is.
If someone gave me $50, I'd be like, holy thank you. But for that to not be enough, and that would be a smack in the face to someone, like, maybe you deserve a smack in the face, though.
50.
So we're starting to see a classic triangle. You will hear me talk about triangulation sometimes. When you have a conflict and you're not able to work it out because of lack of differentiation based on your history, then a third member is always dragged in. And so what's happening right now is that Asuelu's family is being dragged in as a triangulated third. We all know that Kalani's family has been triangulated in as well, but in the beginning, Kalani didn't have a negative view towards Asuelu's family. She mostly didn't know them, but it was a neutral, maybe positive view towards Asuelu's family. Now that they're fighting about this issue and they're unable to negotiate because they're not just sitting down and taking care of each other, asserting themselves in a fair manner. They're just blasting each other and the over-functioning, under-functioning, which is another part of their fusion and undifferentiation. The third element of Asuelu's family is now being triangulated. Asuelu is saying, well, they're expecting me to give money, so you need to let me give them money. And now Kalani is saying, well, they're jerk faces for asking you for money. So now the conflict is starting to begin between Kalani and Asuelu's family instead of resolving the issue between Kalani and Asuelu. What Kalani should do is say, wait. I'm starting to think negative feelings about Asuelu's family when really my negative feelings need to be worked out between me and Asuelu. Asuelu's family, they come from another culture and they can have their point of view. Me and Asuelu have to be on the same page because we're married. We are in a relationship. We're supposed to work this out and then provide a united front to them. Instead, I think what Kalani is going to do is she's going to start attacking them. They're going to start attacking her, which might also be born out of the fact that Asuelu was always a child boy in the family. And I don't know, this is pure speculation, but I could see this happening and maybe already developing where Kalani talks down to him, but originally it was the family that was talking down to him. And now it will be like Kalani and his mom fighting, or Kalani and Asuelu's family of origin fighting because Asuelu is acting like the child. And they're all fighting over different things. But if Asuelu were to rise up and say, hey, everyone, I love you, family of origin. I love you, Kalani. Kalani, let's work this out. Family of origin, go away for a second. Let's come to an agreement. Okay, we agree. My family of origin, this is what we would decide. I know you don't like it, but this is my decision. It's not we came to this decision together. This is an important thing to learn for any situation, honestly, is that when a good example is parenting. So let's say that your kids want something from you. And you as parents, it's debatable and there are different ways of doing this, but in general, it's important that you and the other parent or the other people that are in charge have a conversation away from the kids, come to an agreement, and then you come to the kid. Because if you reveal that there was a conflict, like let's say the kid wants a new bike and you want to get the kid the new bike, but your partner doesn't. and then you say to the kid, you're like, well, we can't get you a bike because, your dad doesn't want you to get a bike. I wanted to get you a bike, but your dad doesn't, so we can't get you a bike. This totally screws with a kid's head, by the way, because they're like, wait, so one of the presidents, think of the family like you have two presidents, you have two kings, a king and a queen or whatever. You have two people who are in charge. And the child is like, okay, one person at the top says yes, the other person says no. Well, why can't we go with the yes? Why can't, whereas if you say to the child, even though you wanted to buy the bike, but you decided, okay, we're not going to get the bike. If you say, we have decided, then the child says, well, there's no wiggle room there and there's nothing really to debate. They both decided, they both must be right. To say that one is right and one wanted to get the bike and one didn't, it implies that parents don't really know what they're doing. Parents are disagreeing, and I agree with one but not the other. And it screws with your head. And so the same applies for Kalani and Asuelu. For them to approach both of their families of origin with different stories, it screws with the families of origin heads, because if they provided a united front, then there wouldn't be this conflict. Am I making sense? All right, well, that does it for that episode of Psychology in Seattle, forgetting which side of the logo is on. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.